Good evening and welcome to the July 26, 2012 meeting of the Radnor Township Environmental Advisory Council. First item on our agenda is the review and approval of the minutes. The minutes of our previous meeting held on June 11, 2012 have been distributed for review. Does anyone have any corrections or changes to the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Minutes are approved. Thank you, Ann Poulin, for preparing last month's minutes and this month's minutes. Great. Next item on the agenda are announcements. I have just a couple. One, I want to remind folks again of the Delaware Valley Green Building Council 11th Annual Green Building Celebration, which will be held September 27th from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Barnes Foundation. It will feature presentation of the Barnes Foundation LEED Platinum Plaque by the USGBC President and tours of the art exhibits and of the building's sustainable features. So I encourage everybody to come out to that event. Advance registration is required, and you can register at www.dvgbc.org. Also wanted to just give a little follow-up. I think at our last meeting we had mentioned that there had been legislation introduced in Philadelphia City Council requiring energy benchmarking, and that actually has now passed in Philadelphia City Council. So that requires that owners of buildings that are 50,000 square feet or larger that have commercial uses have to benchmark their energy and water performance in Energy Star Portfolio Manager on an annual basis and make that information available to prospective purchasers, prospective lessees, and it also has to be made available to the City of Philadelphia. The Office of Sustainability will be putting together a program for disclosure of that information. Does anyone have any other announcements? No? Okay, very good. Moving on then to the next item, which is our work group reports. And the first item is update on greenhouse gas action plan. And Josh and Sloan and I attended the Board of Commissioners meeting on, July 16th, Monday night. Presented that to them. Josh and Sloan did a terrific job outlining the contents of that and preparing a resolution for them that would support the recommendations of the plan and the work of the township manager to put together a green team, which evidently is already in the works. You guys want to add anything to that?
Well, I'll say that the overall response from the commissioners was positive, was very positive. And the fact that the manager has already started the organization of the green team helped quite a bit to have our resolution passing.
Recommendation number one.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about it. It sounds like the green team is already taking shape right now. It has a leader in Melissa Kahn.
Right, she'll do an excellent job.
And she's already thinking about who's going to be on the team, and so hopefully after next month's Board of Commissioners meeting, the resolution will pass. And
right, I guess that's important to note is that we prepared a draft resolution, presented it to the Board of Commissioners. They need to put it in their format, and then they'll formally vote on it at the Board of Commissioners meeting on August 20th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have full expectations that it'll pass without much ado. Yeah. So anything else to add?
No, I think that's exactly right. I think it was a very good reception from the commissioners as well as from the township manager and others. So I think we're on our way and quite excited. So hopefully it'll be a good forum for continuing movement on the action plan as well as other ideas that come in. We
right,
pointed
and
out it's not
just
limited to the items in the action plan. So hopefully it'll be a living document which will be open ideas from the public, from the EAC, from the township itself. So.
And that's a wonderful advantage of the green team, so they can think about things that are happening internally at the township that perhaps they could do them differently, save energy, save costs, be more sustainable, and I think they're looking at that very broadly based upon what I'm hearing from Melissa at this point. Great.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, does anyone have any questions, or no? Okay, next item is sustainability, and Sloan, do you want to start with the WaterSense tip of the month?
I would actually wanted to first of all give a little update from the U.S. Drought Monitor. As folks have probably seen, front page stories about the worsening drought conditions across the country. From the U.S. Drought Monitor site, we can see that the extreme drought conditions have spread through much of the Midwest, and obviously this is sort of the breadbasket, so it's affecting food supplies very dramatically. Our area is currently this little, you can sort of see it, Pennsylvania is half in moderate drought condition. Our region is actually not currently in drought condition, although the time-elapsed view of this map would show the conditions worsening around us. So unless we get some relief soon, we'd probably be in the drought conditions as well. So with that backdrop, on the WaterSense site, there are some good tips in terms of saving water in the summer, particularly with respect to irrigating lawns. This is a very, very large use of water nationally. It's nationally, I think the figure I saw was about 30% of total water use residentially was for landscaping, and as high as 70% in some areas. So a very significant use of water. So their tips are, don't overwater, learn the plant's water needs and water appropriately. A nice tip is, if you step on your lawn and the grass springs back, it does not need to be watered. Also recommend reaching out to the Cooperative Extension Service in our area to check with them in terms of any questions about how much water is needed. Recommend watering when the time is right. The best time to water is early in the morning, before 7 o'clock in the morning, to reduce evaporation. They recommend using essentially recycled water where we can, rain barrels or cisterns. Sweeping driveways, sidewalks, and steps rather than hosing them off. And checking garden hoses for leaks. This is something that I personally need to do, so I will be doing that.
On that note, I want to make a quick comment. I came back from a short vacation, had left my hose, pressured but off, and then in the heat of the sun, the hose ruptured while I was gone. And
Right.
I think it ended up costing me about $40 worth of water.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so important to remember is to shut it off at the spigot, not just at the
Okay,
Wow.
good
Along
advice.
Along those lines, they recommend using, if you can't replace some of the equipment, you can tape some of the leaky parts of the irrigation system. So I'm looking into that. Other WaterSense news. There was an interesting article about the WaterSense pledge, which is a pledge that individuals can take, and it talks about pledging to check for toilets for leaks, twisting, tightening pipe connections, replacing fixtures if necessary, basically 3 major steps that people take this pledge. And in their newsletter, they had the interesting results of a national challenge. There was a national mayor's challenge across the nation to see which communities could generate the most individual WaterSense pledges. They listed the winners, and I'm happy to report that one of our neighboring communities is one of the top 12 or top 10 communities in the nation. It's Quakertown, Pennsylvania, that has one of the highest pledge rates in the country. Other winners include Manhattan Beach in California, Fort Pierce in Florida, Madison, Wisconsin, Charlottesville, Virginia. But nice to see a neighbor at the top. They were actually the winner in their section, which is defined as communities between 30,000 people and 100,000 people. So they had the largest number of pledges in that category.
And Sloan, what do you actually, when you sign on to this pledge, what are you
Where
pledging
do you
to
sign on to
No,
it?
no, what are you pledging to do? Just so we-
You are pledging to do the 3 steps that are outlined on the WaterSense site. So you can go to the WaterSense site and go to Pledge, WaterSense Pledge, and there are 3 components of the pledge. You do it personally. So you sign your name up, your email, your zip code, and you pledge to, number 1, check your toilets for silent leaks, checking irrigation systems is part of checking for leaks, 2, twisting and tightening the pipe connections, and 3, replacing fixtures where necessary, and looking for WaterSense labels when you're replacing the fixtures. So those are the 3 steps that people commit to if they take the pledge. There was a foundation that is called, it's the Weiland Foundation, and they ran a contest in the month of April of this year to encourage communities to, this was the part of this Mayor's Challenge, encouraging the communities to do this, and that's where these results came from. And I will say that I typed in our zip code and looked for how Wayne did, and out of, well, I don't know the exact number, but I know that we were ranked number 38 in the population 30,000 to 100,000 community category, and I know that some other communities around here ranked as low as 450. They will go unnamed, but it shows that there were a lot of communities in the different categories, and to be 38 out of at least 450, certainly puts us in the top 10%. So not bad, but
For the number of people who took this challenge?
for the
pledge,
for the communities that were rated or who were participating. Quakertown in our category, Quakertown was the number 1.
Meaning they had the most number of people?
Most number of individuals who went in and made this pledge.
That's impressive. I mean, we only have 30,000 people who live in this township.
That's right.
So we're at the very bottom of the population, yet pretty high on the list.
Yeah, yeah.
That's impressive.
No, you're right. You're right.
Isn't
That's a
that
good point.
Ahead of like Salem, Massachusetts, or
Well, no,
Quakertown,
we're
yeah.
38. Salem was number 8 in that
Oh,
category.
I see. Okay.
So we don't. These are the top 10 winners in our category. Fort Lee, New Jersey was number 3. Quakertown, hats off, number 1. But we were 38. So there were friends and neighbors who were taking this pledge, and very happy to see that.
So do you want to promote this? Are you suggesting
I
that
think we should. I think we should let people. We are letting people know that there is this pledge on the EPA WaterSense site. The actual contest, this Mayor's Challenge, looks like it's been completed for this year. Not clear whether there will be another one in the next year, but certainly worth doing. And the winning communities won some pretty cool stuff. I think there were prizes including some hybrid cars. I think there were irrigation systems, something like 10 or so irrigation systems for winning communities. So there was there were prizes awarded, but mostly clearly people are taking steps to commit to doing the small but meaningful things that they should to reduce waste of water in their homes. So thought it was a neat thing, and I'll keep my eyes open. If there's another one, we can let people know.
I wonder if you want to promote this among the community, whether it would make sense to do a little write-up, just a short one about what this is, and then ask Melissa if we can get it on a little news item that goes out,
Yeah.
write what it is, and then you can click here if you're interested to pledge.
That's a good
And then I
idea.
wonder if there'd be a way that we could somehow get from EPA some kind of tracking or numbers, like how many people from our community
Right.
actually do take that
Right.
pledge.
They didn't reveal numbers,
Mhm.
so I don't know how many numbers were in each category.
Right.
But it's a good question because I didn't call the EPA and ask. So
Right, and we've signed on as a partner, so we
so
have
maybe-
contacts there.
It's a good
that-
idea. It's a good idea, especially if we could find out, okay, what are the winning numbers,
Mhm.
and see if we can get in at least into that zip code or that kind of percentage commitment. So, yeah, I think it's a neat idea and worth looking at. So
Okay.
I'll do a little work around figuring out what else we can find out about it, and maybe putting it out on the Green Radnor page as a contest or some sort of challenge.
And it seems like these, 1, 2, 3 steps are relatively easy, probably things that people would be willing to do anyway, if you ask them to do it.
That's right. That's right. So
Okay,
I'll
Great.
work on it.
thanks for bringing it to our
Oh,
attention.
and might I also give a little something on electric cars?
Sure,
while
go
we're on-
ahead. It's all under sustainability.
Yes, exactly, under sustainability. Good news that electric car sales, hybrid and electric car sales remain strong in June. A report on the sale of hybrid and electric cars in June saw a surge of 164%. I think that's year over year, according to Kelley Blue Book market report for July of this year, and cited certain models, including a Lexus hybrid, which saw new sales grow 500% year over year. Volt sales improving 200% year over year. And then a lot of interest in Prius. I guess Prius has some new models that are proving to be very popular. So good news in terms of traction on the electric and hybrid vehicle front, despite the fact that fuel prices have actually moderated. So it doesn't seem to be completely correlated with just, gas prices are super high and therefore I'm going to get a hybrid. It seems like it's beyond that, which is nice. And then finally, just wanted to note an article about the city of Bellevue, Washington, which is taking steps to cut costs and greenhouse gas emissions. It's adding 3 electric cars to its vehicle fleet this week, which is this week, and they're incorporating electric vehicles into their fleet of 230 passenger vehicles. They now have 120 hybrids, and I think that includes some electric cars. They are expecting to save about $100,000 and 30,000 gallons of gasoline each year, and reducing carbon dioxide emissions by 250 metric tons. They've installed 14 public charging stations, and all are seeing increasing usage, which is nice. And they're adding 6 new stations to accommodate the fleet vehicles. They have 50 public use charging stations in all. So very exciting work being done out in Bellevue, Washington.
That's great. Now, Sloan, say somebody in Radnor wanted an electric vehicle. Where could they get it charged?
Well, it's interesting because there was a separate study that talked about how fully, I think it was 50% of Americans live within 20 feet of essentially an outlet which is powerful enough to recharge a plug-in hybrid, which is what the Volt and the Leaf are. Meaning there is an electrical source with the right setup to essentially plug the very simple electric cord into. Now, that doesn't mean that certainly 50% is not 100%, so not everybody, but there's a huge amount of capacity for people to charge. And where is this? It's basically in their homes or in their in their home garage, which is where I charge my car most of the time. And
And what if you go shopping in Wayne?
If I go shopping in Wayne, there's of course a very handy charging station right at the train station. Skip, I don't know if there's any news on other charging stations out at the...
I think we are just remembering where they all are at this point, too. I believe there's 2 charging stations over near Nordstrom on the 2nd level in the mall.
Great.
King of Prussia Mall.
That's great.
As well.
And there's Brandywine.
One at Brandywine, St.
Brandywine
David's.
has at least one, if not more than one, charging station. So, there are good opportunities in Radnor and around Radnor, I can report things continue to go well on the Volt front. So,
Excellent. Well, thank you for those updates. Josh, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind us, or you and I, about the conversation we witnessed at the Board of Commissioners meeting about the new parking lot. What do they call those? Kiosks.
Right.
And one of them is going to be in the, I believe, in the lot that has our charging station. So I just want to remind us to follow up with somebody to see how that might affect the charging station.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, very good. Josh, I think I'm going to turn back to you now to talk about the rain garden.
Sure.
Okay.
When I met with Stephen Norsini, the Director of Public Works here at Radnor, he came to me and asked for the EAC's help in creating a rain garden at Cowan Park. Now, Cowan Park is on Radnor Street Road. I think it's called Radnor Street Road in that section in North Wayne. It's a park with a baseball diamond, a basketball court. It now has a brand new convenience. Not convenience. Rest station or convenience station, whatever. It's a bathroom. And it's a much smaller bathroom than used to be there, and much more compact. And so there's a little bit of room left to create a rain garden. And the idea of the rain garden is to capture some of the runoff from the field, and the baseball field, and from the roof of the convenience station or the bathroom, and give it a place to percolate into the ground. It also is an opportunity to educate the community about rain gardens, and we got a grant to do it. I forget exactly how much the grant is for, but it is large enough to allow the digging of the foundation of this garden. You have to put some substrate in there, and Public Works, I believe, has already done most of that work, and then the purchase and installation of some appropriate vegetation that goes into a rain garden. So he asked for our help to organize a volunteer force to do the plantings. And of course, the Public Works guys will be there with their large equipment, with their backhoes, so there won't be any heavy digging going on here. This is just kind of like, the finish part of it, getting the plants in the ground. And then before that, actually, he needs some help picking out those plants. So he'll have the hardscaping part of it designed for us, but now the plant, the vegetation part of it, he'd like our help with getting that picked out and / designed. So, having said that, I think he's close to needing our help now. It looks like the park's ready. It's getting to that time of year where you want to start thinking about putting in some plants when it starts to cool off. It's a good time of year to plant. And Dan has offered his
Yep,
help
I'm
to
happy to
head
help
this up.
move things along. I'll get in touch with Steve. I was talking with him when we were putting our Ren grant proposal together, so I've gotten to know him a bit. And I've got a dozen landscape architects I can reach out to and get some ideas for plants. And then also have a connection to a local Boy Scout troop that might be looking to earn some badges by digging some dirt and planting some plants.
Excellent.
And there are
And
people
then-
who use that park quite a bit. Like especially there's a kids playground there too, so we could maybe post some signs about the planting day.
Right,
a good
right.
idea.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a neighborhood association for that little area.
Yeah, I think that's probably North Wayne there.
It's,
So
Would it be?
it's sort of between North Wayne and St. David's.
So
North
we
Wayne
advertise to both of those
Both of those
groups.
groups,
and-
yeah.
And yeah.
Are you two in the North Wayne
Mhm.
section?
I'm,
Okay.
I
I'm,
am.
I'm just
Oh.
outside, but I can share it with my neighbors.
Mhm.
So I'd be happy, once there's, a schedule and a time to get that info out to my neighbors.
And that was North Wayne, and what's the other one?
There's North Wayne Protective Association. There isn't an equivalent group in St. David's, but I will send it out to the St. David's folks, because that's where I am, so I'll get it out to the St. David's.
Okay, well, let me check in with Steve and see what he's thinking for timing, and then we can coordinate that.
Great, thank
All
you.
right.
Do you think, what's your guesstimate, is it sort of September, or
I would say that's probably the best
Yeah.
time.
August?
September,
A lot
early
of
October.
vacations, a lot of people
Yeah,
out
and
of
too
town.
hot still, I think.
hot
You kind
for
of want
planting
to
and-
put the new plants in when you don't
Right.
have to worry about
Yeah.
baking. Yeah,
Great, great.
so maybe mid-September to mid-October,
Yeah.
something like that.
That's great. No, I think that's great. And there is a grant for it, or?
Yeah, there is a grant for it. Like I said, I had it written down somewhere. I can't seem to find my notes on it, but we applied for and received it. It was a state grant, state DEP grant, I believe, but I can't remember what
That's
quantity
great.
was for. But it was specifically for this purpose. I believe it included monies for educational materials, whether it be
Wow.
a mailing or whatnot. I was thinking kind of maybe a sign or something like that.
Township staff applied for that grant, yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Great.
fabulous.
And do we know if it's the first rain garden, at least municipal rain garden?
I don't know, but I thought Radnor Township perhaps some years ago had done some work, but it was
Okay.
before
Right.
my
right.
involvement, I think, yeah.
Steve also said that he is eager to offer his crew's services to do these kind of things, these kind of projects. So if there's any other feasible locations that we want to, after this project is over, we want to go to the next one. He said, just let him know, and
Right.
his guys are ready.
Yeah, there's actually state requirements that townships are educating the public about stormwater. So it's, he's meeting, basically meeting the law by doing these things. But it's great because he's absolutely 100% behind it. And not just because it's his job to make these things happen. He's really into seeing the improvements.
Yeah, he mentioned the Clem McCrone Park. Is that the one that the?
Yeah, I've got an
Yeah.
update on that here
That's
whenever you're
I'll
ready.
I'll let you go with that. But he also mentioned the Willows as a potential opportunity since it's, it's got a lot of water going through it. It's low. It's owned by the township. So
A few years back, we worked with the township to look into doing a rain garden between the township building and the creek. And the figures at that time, I think they figured that it would collect runoff from an 18,000 square foot area. There's a lot of water that rushes down through here.
That's
And-
actually when we put our Ren grant in. That was,
Right.
while we hadn't specifically said it was that's what everyone was thinking
And
about.
there
Yeah.
should be plans. They got to the
I
point of
understand there are somewhere, yeah.
drawing up plans, but that would be an easy next project.
Yep.
So, just a very good point. So who's ever talking with him ought to bring that up, if that's going to be you,
Right,
Dan, to,
right.
make sure to remind him that if they're eager to do it and they have plans, as Ann says, get that on the top of the list.
And one of the subjects that came up when we've been talking about rain gardens is the maintenance issue. Because the township, depending on how they're planted, the township can end up with quite a hefty obligation for maintenance. One of the things we had talked about, because the township was quite concerned about that back when we were talking about this one, was just having a grass rain garden, because that can be effective. The other thing I've seen in some other areas is fencing it entirely so that it's well marked off from grassy areas that the township has to grow, and then whatever happens within that fence, once you've planted it, you just kind of let it go. That's another way of reducing the township's maintenance obligation.
Right. I mean, you can also, you say grass, but you can also do sort of a meadow so that it's longer grass and has a little more natural
Right.
look to it. Yeah. Update on the,
Yes.
okay, so, as you know, we had applied for a Wren grant, and like most first-time applicants, we did not get selected. But the Garrett Hill Coalition, I think they were in for their second year. They did receive one, and I reached out to them and just got an update of where they are right now. The funding was just released July 1st, so they're in the very early planning phases, and they're sort of dealing with key people being on vacation or away on business and so on. But right now, what they're tentatively looking at is in the fall, they would have a public meeting where they would introduce stormwater management concepts and strategies for property owners, and that would focus mainly on rain gardens and rain barrels. And then shortly after that, they would have a workshop where they would build one or more rain gardens at Clem-McCrone Park. And then in the spring, in April of 2013, they'd be looking to have 2 more public meetings where the focus would be more specifically about rain barrels. And then that would be followed by a workshop on rain barrel installation. So I just told Sarah Pilling of the coalition, I'll check in with her before every EAC meeting, and as these dates come up, we can just help publicize them and hopefully generate some turnout for the meetings and the workshops.
Great. Okay, very good. So is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up under sustainability topics? Yours might fit under there.
I don't know where my lights fit on that.
Yeah, I think that would be sustainable.
Okay.
Why don't you jump right on in there?
My company is exploring the possibility of replacing all of our, actually at this point only 7 or 8 years old, fluorescent lights with LED tube lights. And even with retrofitting existing fixtures, which is a savings in terms of time and cost, the bulbs are the most expensive single component. The bulbs right now are probably about $50 each. The payback is about 3 years, and that's assuming that you had to borrow money at 6% to fund the transition. The lifespan of the bulb runs between 50 and 100,000 hours, this particular bulb. And there are other bulbs. I went online. You can see different manufacturers. Not a lot so far. This is apparently a relatively new change. But one particular customer of this particular supplier of bulbs was Upper Dublin or Dublin shopping bag, and they figured out over the life of the changeover that they'd reduce carbon emissions in the first lifespan of these bulbs by 1.3 million pounds of CO2. This is one single grocery store. So we talk about our carbon plan, and I don't know what the inventory of fixtures are in the township in terms of ordinary fluorescents, but a 3-year return, and maybe there's some grant money for something like this too, I'm sure, is a pretty attractive thing. It seems to me that it would be one of the fastest ways that we might, in the near term, or maybe a year from now, if bulbs get cheaper, you don't know. Just before the meeting, I told you the VCR story that the first one that I ever had was $600, and was not a Betamax, but, you know, they got down to about $30, I think, before everybody went to DVDs. But anyway, that digression aside, we're seriously considering it. It's a very quick change. They can change hundreds of fixtures in a week, depending on the contractor they use. It takes, one person can do 3 or 4 light fixtures an hour. You just cut the ballast, direct wire into 3 new, what they call tombstones, and you plug the bulb in. All the power comes from one end of the tombstone. And the failure rate on this particular bulb is 13 hundredths of 1%
Wow.
so far.
Now, Skip, is this for outdoor use in your?
No, this
in
is
your-
indoor so far.
This is indoor?
Yeah.
And have you, used any or tested them? And
They actually, as part of their presentation, come in and change one of your light fixtures. There's no issue with being in a series on one switch or anything like that. And it took them 15 minutes. They put in 3 new bulbs. The color is a little cooler, although you can get a warm color that would mimic the fluorescent.
That's what I've heard. I've heard they have now some options on colors that they didn't necessarily until pretty recently, so.
Apparently, yeah. You can get them frosted or not frosted. And this particular company evaluates your type of use. And so if you're a grocery store, it would be one type of lighting. If it's a school, it might be a different color range or something like that. And they run cooler as well. So even in your air conditioning issue, you have a collateral savings that they don't try to calculate, because actually, since they run cooler in the winter, you might need a little more heat. So they felt it was too difficult and intangible to calculate. A friend of mine who was an HVAC engineer told me that most malls' air conditioning runs 11 months a year anyway. So I would think in that setting, a conversion like this would make sense. And if your building's well insulated, a conversion like this would make sense. too.
Are you looking for any favorable financing for this, or is it something you're going to finance?
They create a model for you that you could lease from them or from someone else. Actually, not so much from them. They would put you together with a leasing company. The cost of that leased funds is around 10%. And we have other funds that we could use, and we plugged in 6% as a return. And our payback is somewhere around the middle of the 37th month. That's everything. And we took certain components out. In our particular setting, we don't have a separate maintenance crew that has to change the light bulbs when they burn out. It's someone who's already at work. So even with that, the payback was 37 months. It's faster. They give you an analysis with that your cash flow is positive like within a month, because they take into account the immediate electric savings, the labor to replace bulbs and things like that.
Wow, that's great.
We had positive cash flow in our analysis, but when I took the labor out, it went negative. But if you take at all a long view, 3 years is a short period of time.
And this would be used in an office setting or a
It
store?
can be office. It can be a retail store that has fluorescent lighting.
Are you thinking store or?
Actually, we already have our offices, because they're not used that constantly, on a motion sensor. So all our fluorescents go on and off depending on if someone's in the room. Our retail store, though, they're on 75 hours a week, so we know what's involved.
Can you do the motion sensor with the LEDs or no?
I don't know. I could find that out.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Makes sense. In fact, the power.
You might even be able to dim some of them. I'm not sure if yours are dimmable.
You
but
can get dimmable. Ours, we'd have to retrofit some of the switches and things like that.
Mhm.
But it's amazing. The light is, if you crank it up, he had a lumen meter underneath the light fixture. And if you replace, the other thing that's very typical in this installation is you replace only about 80 to 85% of your existing bulbs, because the light is brighter and you get the same lumens per square foot roughly. If you're sealing, if you're this close, no, but if you have a typical 10-foot expanse, yes. So that's another savings, even though, as I say, the bulbs right now are, I haven't seen a bulb cheaper than $40, even on the internet. And these bulbs, which have the driver inside the tube, are 50 or so.
There's a hardware store here in town, Do It Best. It's on Pennsylvania Avenue. It's one of my favorite shops around.
Mine too, yeah.
And they have just started a conversion project. I would encourage everybody to go there as soon as you can, because they're only halfway done right now. So you can see what the difference in light quality is between the LEDs and the old fluorescents. You have to keep in mind that every LED bulb is different. So if you're not happy with the appearance of a certain LED, that doesn't mean that there's not one out there that you will like.
And there's at least 4 different color ranges available out there that I know of. And the frosted looks more like a conventional fluorescent. You can see the strip, just like some of the German cars. You can see the strip of the little tiny lights if you don't use the frosted.
And that's what they have at the hardware store. They have just the unfrosted ones. And the light is remarkably brighter. It is cooler. Like you said, the ones that they picked was a cooler model. And the, what do you call it, the color rendering index? It's spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, the colors are just totally pop. So whereas the old part of the store is kind of muted and, browns and yellows, and then the rest of it is just really brilliant. So they said that was one of the positive things they noticed.
It's the contrast of like a label, or in my case, a case of beer. It's definitely easier to read, and even the small print on the case and all that. We're going to do it. Actually, let me put it a different way. We are going to do it. It just depends on whether or not this first proposal is the most attractive one. So I'll report back after.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and I think, it ties directly to the action plan. I think one of our largest and most important recommendations had to do with looking into LED conversions. So I think it would be terrific to hear, as you move forward, your experience, and, maybe if there are good groups to work with, I think that would be extremely.
And didn't Steve Norsini tell one of you that he was starting to look at options for lighting?
Yeah, he had mentioned that. He had mentioned that
Actually,
he had been approached by
these people are at least one of the groups that approached him.
Yeah, these were, he had been approached, I believe it was an energy savings situation, right? Like where you,
Like an ESCO or something?
ESCO, where I'm not sure they use that term, but you pay for the project through the energy savings, and you don't necessarily see an out-of-pocket expense up front, and you see just kind of a net decrease in the amount of money you have to pay.
They had given us a proposal where we wouldn't get the payback until the 50th month, but we wouldn't have any out-of-pocket based on their first analysis of our situation. So that's okay, too. It just, it made more sense for us to accelerate it. So in the second proposal, we used our funds, a lower rate of return or cost of funds, and the payback was at the 37th month. And then it goes on, because they estimate those bulbs will last about 15 to 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I know at Home Depot now you can buy units that are designed to replace sort of the standard recessed lighting. So if you're comfortable twisting a few wire nuts, I mean, it's not real. I haven't done it yet, but I've been looking at it. It's.
You don't even have to twist the wire nut.
Oh, yeah. Is it just sort of the
You
bulb
screw it right
changes?
in,
Oh, okay.
And
Now, I've
that's for
done-
an LED? Dan,
For
is it-
LED,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
an LED flood or down flood.
And I think those are dimmable, the ones
They
that
are
I saw there.
dimmable,
Yeah.
but, okay, because this actually goes to a lot of residents who, as opposed to businesses, what we're talking about. If you have 10 bulbs on a dimmer, your current dimmer actually gets hot or warm in the wall because the resistance is fairly high as it goes up and down. And each bulb is about, in this particular analysis that came from Home Depot, it's like $11 a year to run 3 hours a day. If you go to the LED bulb, that's a Home Depot proprietary label, it drops to $1.82 a year in electricity in the same cost per watt or kilowatt. And the bulbs last 15 years instead of 2 or 3. They are, you can touch the surface. Everybody knows how hot a flood can be. You can touch the surface because it's about 95 degrees.
Wow. That's great.
They are brighter, just like the tube LEDs, and I had to leave one halogen in my set of 10 lights because I didn't want to replace the dimmer. And if you replace every single one, the LED draw is so low that you occasionally get a little flicker. But as soon as I put one back in, it was just enough of a power draw.
Interesting.
I went to Home Depot just last week, and I bought a few more screw-ins, replacements. And if anybody's interested in what they look like, they come to my kitchen. I have a laboratory going on in my kitchen because I have 3 different models of LED bulbs now. They're different, but they're the same, lumens, just different brands. One is the Home Depot brand, and a couple of other ones. And one is actually the one where you actually unscrew the wire nuts or the wing nuts and replace the whole fixture. The recessed can fixtures are the one I'm talking about. And my favorite one by far is the Home Depot made by Cree, and it's a 10-watt flood light that replaces your typical 65-watt flood. And its light quality is better than an incandescent. I'm not kidding you. It is better. It is.
I'm in the fan club with you on that.
It is a remarkable product. It's shocking. It's $40 right now. I saw them on sale for $30 at one time.
Yeah, that's when I got mine.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's just it's a stunning product. It really is, and
Is
it's
there any-
dimmable.
Is there any kind of guarantee?
I don't know if they guarantee them. They do have a life of, they don't really know yet, but they usually say a range of 25,000 to 50,000 hours and up.
And this is one where you have to be comfortable screwing some things in. This is where you have to retrofit a little
Well,
bit.
it's in terms of home improvement.
No? Just
Unscrew.
yeah.
Well,
Just the bulb
The one,
itself.
the one
not
that I'm talking
canister.
about actually replaces how there's like a little trim kit that goes around some can fixtures up in the ceiling, a flush trim kit. This one actually replaces that trim kit. So it's like, in terms of a home improvement project, it is on the easiest level as just above screwing a bulb in, so. But I also have some of the screw-in ones too, and I'm not as big of a fan as this other model, but yeah, it's a great thing to try out. And talk
Well, I
about energy
wouldn't-
savings. You're talking about 1/6 of the amount of energy use, which is impressive.
Right now, I have the compact fluorescents in some of in floods, and it's just irritating because you put it on, and it still remains dark. I mean, after
Takes like 10
about
minutes
5
for the
minutes,
room to
right? Then it's
brighten, yeah.
fine. But
These are
Yeah.
instantaneous.
These
Yeah.
are,
Wow.
that's right.
Instantaneous, and there's no delay between switch and on, and there's no warm-up period either.
okay, I'm coming over to your house.
And I bet you won't be able to tell. Well, you'll be able to tell which one it is because it'll look so nice, but
Uh-huh.
otherwise
Okay.
you wouldn't be able to tell.
All right, good.
Well, maybe you can
Thank
do
you.
a Josh presentation on
I
when
actually I
you-
already presented on this maybe 2 years ago or whatever, but I'm
Well, now that
I'm
when you-
totally
when you-
sold on
When the
this.
experiment is complete, you can give us your
I will.
final results.
Okay, very good. Okay. Should we move on to, is there anything beyond that on community environmental awareness? No. Okay, very good. Liaison reports. Skip, do you have anything to report on?
You and I have had a couple of conversations about the changes to institutional zoning that are going to be studied first, outlined, and explained, and then we'll gradually move through the process. I know that you reached out to the chairman of planning, and it would be a good thing if the EAC participates in the drafting of the ordinance or the changes to the ordinance as it comes up. In the very first presentation, the consultant that we have coming to the township had not seen our shade tree ordinance, and he said, you should have something in this ordinance about shade trees, and he was unaware that, there are other ordinances already effectively regulating some of that. And but that being said, things like this that we just discussed tonight, should buildings over 20,000 square feet in their parking lots have 2 charging stations? Or highly recommended 2 charging stations? Adopting state-of-the-art or better water handling than our current zoning. I mean, these are major institutions, the map that we saw, the first presentation, it's like, looks like 10 or 12% of the township is already zoned for this. So it's a critical thing that we'll be doing. I believe that planning will welcome participation from the EAC on this.
Okay. And I had tried calling the chair of the Planning Commission a couple times and haven't been able to reach him.
Email first.
Yeah.
Email.
Okay.
You'll get to him that way, and I'll bring it up.
Okay, that would be great. He did indicate in that email exchange that we had that there'd be something coming up in the beginning of August, maybe? Or
No.
so there's special meetings you're
No,
having on
there's a
this?
series. The view of the township is that this is such a complicated issue and such a huge issue that we'll probably have 4 to 6 meetings that'll be dedicated just to this between now and the point of bringing ordinance to life, or changes to the ordinance.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about meetings going out to December, at this point.
And do you have a schedule of those meetings yet?
I think the latest tweak is that it's going to be the first Thursday of every month.
Okay,
And we're usually, the first Monday, so.
all right. And so far, I had asked for EAC members who might be interested in taking the lead on this. And Skip and Sloan and Josh, I think, indicated interest, all of you folks. So.
I'll be at every meeting, that's for sure.
Well, it makes sense to have you be our point person there on this. But I'll continue to try to reach out, and, perhaps you can too on our behalf. And just really what I want to do is
I'll do
find
that.
out what's the best way. Is it for us to attend that meeting, and will we, can we have a role in that? I don't know whether these meetings are intended to be around the table, or are they here?
The first meeting, he presented from the podium.
Mm-hmm.
The audience was here somewhat interested in particular axes to grind logically in their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But we attempted to keep it in a general tone,
Mm-hmm.
because this applies to 10 or 12 or 15 institutions, not just 2 or 3 that are building things right now.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. All right.
I'll reach out to Ed,
Okay, that would be great.
and I'll copy on that.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Very good.
Wonder, would it be useful to have some sort of task force or something where we're sort of thinking in terms of the environmental issues? I mean, Skip, I outlined a couple of good ideas. Is there,
Well, that was what I was thinking,
Yeah.
that group could
the group
be.
could,
Right.
okay, so the group could maybe have a few, ideas that would be suggested as part of the overall ordinance. Okay.
But I guess the key is being in contact with the chair of planning to make sure that there's a
Way
role
to-
for us and that we're integrated into that process
see.
through what they're doing versus, I guess, versus just
Showing
kind of
up.
sitting there in the audience.
No, I
and,
think
yeah.
we could, the right way to do it would be to put you on the agenda in some way. If you're going to make an individual presentation that relates to the matter. Also, the other charm of this is being a special meeting. I believe that our intent is never to have a particular application on that night, although we've had to have multiple meetings because so many applications at times have come in. I guess hypothetically, we'll have 3 meetings when one of those months happens. But perhaps as people begin to realize that we're doing this, the audience attendance will be pretty strong too. It was fairly strong for the first one. I think we had like 20 or 30 people, but again, people want to talk about Villanova and the parking lot and the whole thing, or Eastern, or, Cabrini. So everybody had a reason to be here that was independent of the general ordinance. That being said, important information is being offered to the public.
So I guess what I would envision, at least at this point, without more information, which we may get, is to have this be our task force of people, attending the meeting. Skip will be there anyway on behalf of planning, but it would be good to have, you folks maybe, divide it up, attend some of the meetings, and then we can talk further, here, so that you can kind of come back with, they were talking about this and had this reaction to it. Maybe we should raise some of these issues so that it's integrated. I guess that's my thought on the best way for it to work, at least at this point.
We have one secret weapon, so to speak. We requested before the first meeting, and I didn't send it to you at first because I wasn't sure what we were actually getting. But we actually get the presentation in advance of the presentation.
Oh, well, that
So
would
if
be
you had
helpful.
it within 3
Yeah.
hours after I get it,
That would be great.
then you could prepare an EAC comment to deliver at the meeting
Okay,
on
that would be great.
on that night's thing or topic.
Okay.
So I will, unless there's some prohibition that I'm unaware of, I don't see why not.
And I guess I
I will
would
make sure
have
you
that
get it.
conversation with the chair that, we're trying to, rather than have to duplicate efforts and have, planning go through the CAC, we can kind of join together and try to make it efficient, but,
Anytime this has ever come up before, there's certain things that, I guess, like, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to give you an individual plan in advance of the meeting, but something like this that's designed to go right to the public, and we're part of the communication with the public. I've had a couple of questions, in the last 2 years, and I've always been told, fine, tell them. So I'll tell you.
okay, all right. 4 to 6 meetings, so this is going to,
Once a month.
yeah, once a month. So this will be carried into next year before anything really happens.
Not necessarily.
No.
Not necessarily. Certain planning commissioners would rather it be this year. Not to, how shall I put this? Not to give the process inadequate airing before the public, but because so much is going on, that the longer we wait to change the ordinance, the more things that'll be pre-approved and locked up and unable to be changed. And everyone perceives the parking, for example, is not right in the ordinance. It's a lot of the projects that come through, the institutions create more parking than they actually have to, because they already know the parking would create nightmares for them if they didn't do that. And certain schools are more commuter than resident, and that's a factor. So, I mean, not to, I guess it's appropriate to name names because they said it, but Eastern has more parking than they need under the code. Cabrini, or is it Notre Dame? Notre Dame has less, but, that's.
And I guess that's probably a tricky one too, in that if you look at, okay, we want to maybe approach planning from a sustainable perspective, sustainability would typically tell you less parking is better, get more people on public transportation, but I'm sure that members of the public, I think I was reading the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting or planning meeting, people are saying, oh, but the cars then park in our neighborhoods and
Yep.
we don't like that. And,
Yep, that's exactly right.
right.
Well, there's different ways to do parking, like a vertical garage has a smaller footprint.
Right.
If it's built into a hillside, it's more energy sustainable. There's less heating and cooling. Maybe a little bit more for lights, but if they use these LED lights, even that won't be that bad. There are different.
So maybe we just have to
the
get past the
consultant's
idea
charm-
of like, oh, we don't like taller structures. And
The consultant's charm is that he can give you a range of options that it would take us and other members of the township staff, would take you a lot of time to do the education that he can provide you with. So he can say, in these 3 townships, the setback rule is 200 feet, and ours is, let's say, 125. We have a height restriction, I think it's 37 or 38. Some areas have, 100, because they like that, concentrating the density in the center. It has a big setback, but it's, it's a 5, 6, 10-story building. So we're going to listen, and the public will weigh in, I'm sure. And then ultimately, the commissioners will decide.
right.
Skip, could I ask, in terms of process, I mean, it seems like a very big issue, a very exciting issue, and an opportunity to, put in place some thoughtful rules that would have a long-term impact. I'm just wondering if it would make sense, given it's not tomorrow, but would it make sense to, have the subgroup of the EAC get a copy of whatever the ordinance is, have some sort of brainstorming session or something like that where ideas were put on the table, and then come back to the EAC as a whole to discuss thoughts and recommendations and ask and seek the EAC's support before going to the Planning Commission with an EAC.
Yeah, I think it has to be more simultaneous. I don't think that we can take the process back and forth that much. The course that the staff wants to take is to start with planning.
No,
Not
I
to exclude,
understand.
not to exclude other
Yeah.
participation, but we have to fit in. I think the EAC has to fit into the planning setup, and Ed will have some sense of how that can be done.
Right. But my just to clarify what I was thinking was not so much going back and forth to the Planning Commission, but rather sort of getting some thoughts together with a smaller group and then vetting them with the full EAC, seeing if there is agreement on, let's say we thought it would be great to recommend, charging stations on, certain properties, and a few other ideas. Then bring those ideas to maybe the next if we can.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So then the idea would be, when we went to the Planning Commission, it would be not as a subgroup, but, hopefully as the full EAC, with the support of the full EAC.
I guess what I think is that probably will be the way it works in maybe a parallel path. So if you for example, you attend the first meeting, the first Thursday. You attend the first Thursday meeting, you and Skip and whoever else can or wants to attend. Maybe some of it is information gathering on your part, so you get the information, and maybe you don't even have feedback at that point, but then you've got some information as a subgroup, you can kind of talk about that. Our meeting is at the end of the month, always have an ability then to say, okay, let's report out on this and tell you what happened, and here's some thoughts that we have, and then that's at the end of the month, and then you attend the next meeting, a week later, and you have some thoughts then to bring to that meeting where probably you're information gathering still, but you're also giving feedback. As I'm gathering, that's how it happens, is there's both information
yeah.
that will be gathered at those meetings and given at those meetings, right?
Yes. And I think the consultant has a way of doing this. So he gave us kind of the overview first. And if you haven't seen it, I'm sure I never throw an email away. I will find it and send it on. So you'll see what we saw. There was both a PowerPoint and a printed text that he worked from, although he deviated somewhat from it as he went. It will be the same person at each meeting, Charles Schlemmel or something like that. And I will send you the next one, and I'm going to make a request on Monday when I pick up the next set of plans that we're going to do in August. I'll make a request of Susan Jones that we get that in advance again, and I will make sure that as soon as I have it and I can send it to you.
That was
I'll
this,
send
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we did send it around. If you need another copy, we can certainly do that. June 12th, I think we
Yeah.
sent that around.
Great.
Do you want to
We
have
couldn't
Skip
figure out a way to do
recirculate,
one
or?
in July.
That
so-
would be great if
Yeah.
that's not too.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I think of all the, Shade Tree and ourselves make a great deal of sense to be involved in this.
Yeah.
And, maybe Harb should be involved too, but I don't think that many of the institutions are in the district.
Right.
Maybe none of them are. The Historical Review.
Right.
I'll give you as much info as I can,
Great.
as soon as I can, and as early as I can.
That's great.
All right. Very good. Okay, thank you. Is there any other old business that we want to take up? No? Okay. And any other new business? No? Very good. Then no public here, so no public comment. I think we're adjourned. Thank you.